So I've discussed this topic before, about a few months ago in fact, regarding Konami's return to the Metal Gear Solid franchise. As someone who has been playing video games quite a while and enjoys the kinds of content, I find the situation surrounding Metal Gear Solid particularly intriguing. The fanbase is diverse, with different groups holding varying of perspectives on the franchise's revival. So when it comes to Metal Gear Solid, there are different kinds of fans. There are simply fans of Konami properties in general, enjoying games like Metal Gear Solid, Silent Hill, and Castlevania without necessarily focusing on any one of the franchises or creators. Others are fans of specific creators, with Hideo Kojima's being the particular notable figure. Kojima has built a strong reputation over the years, and many people admire his work to the point of forming an almost cult-like following. While I respect his contribution, and I wouldn't call myself a Kojima fanboy, and instead, I deeply appreciate his work and the impact that he has had on the gaming industry. Finally, there are also fans who fall somewhere maybe in between. People who love Metal Gear Solid as a franchise while also being aware of the larger context in which the games were created. So, because of these differences in terms of the perspective, Metal Gear Solid returning as a franchise has been a polarizing topic. Some fans are staunchly against Konami, believing that the company disrespected Kojima and does not deserve support without his involvement. They see continuing the series without him as an insult to his legacy. On the other hand, another group argues that Kojima himself repeatedly stated that Metal Gear was never truly his. It was always Konami's property. He also expressed on numerous occasions that he wanted to move on from the series but kept returning to it. For these fans, if Kojima wanted to leave Metal Gear behind, then someone else should be allowed to take over. Both perspectives, I think, have merit, making the discussion surrounding Metal Gear Solid's return all the more quite fascinating. So, in November of 2024, Noriaki Okamura, a longtime producer at the Konami, shed light on why the company decided to bring Metal Gear Solid back. And one of the main reasons he cited was that the Konami was concerned that people were beginning to forget what Metal Gear even was. Some might find this, perhaps surprising, considering that Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain was just recently released, it was actually a decade ago, in 2015, for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. However, Okamura clarified that their concern was not about older fans forgetting the franchise, but rather that newer generations of gamers were not being introduced to the Metal Gear in the same way previous generations had been. This raises an interesting discussion about gaming in history, and whether the older franchises need to be reintroduced to the modern audiences. So, many younger gamers today have never played Metal Gear Solid simply because the series had not had a major release in nearly a decade, as mentioned. There's also a growing mindset among some players that all games are not worth playing, leading to a disconnect between newer players and classic titles. While I understand reasoning due to the technology being so old back then, and yet if you try to play them now, it might be quite challenging. And still, I think there is some sort of a merit to revisit those titles and see why they were so special back then. But still, I do understand the reasoning. And unfortunately, modern gaming culture often encourages the constant consumption of new releases rather than revisiting older titles. This forces companies to remake or remaster games to keep them relevant. But this comes with a dilemma. Are these re-releases being handled properly? Are they preserving gaming history, or are they just cash grabs that fail to do justice to the original works? This concern was evident in the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection. While the collection was a positive step in making Metal Gear Solid more accessible, its launch was plagued with issues. Some of the ports did not run as well as their PlayStation 3 counterpart, frustrating fans who expected at least a high-quality re-release. Despite these flaws, the collection still allowed new players to experience Metal Gear Solid for the first time, which is valuable in preserving the franchise's legacy. And over time, Konami has improved the Master Collection, making it a much better product than it was at launch. However, if Konami releases another Master Collection like Volume 2 as an example, with similar issues, it raises the question on whether they are genuinely trying to preserve the series or simply exploiting it for the financial gain. Konami has acknowledged the technical problems with the Master Collection and has been working on a post-launch patches to improve its performances. While this is a step in the right direction, it highlights the growing concern that classic franchises are being re-released hastily without proper care, leading to a diminished experience for both old and new players alike. So the upcoming remake, we have to talk about this. Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, or well of course known as Metal Gear Solid Delta, is another point of interest. If it's well made, it could serve as a great way to introduce new players to the series. However, if it's plagued with major issues, it could do more harm than good by tarnishing the game's reputation. And according to Konami, Metal Gear Solid Delta will remain faithful to the original's game story and world while introducing modern graphical and gameplay enhancements. The developers have emphasized that they are not rewriting the script or making significant changes to the game's core identity. If executed properly, this approach could be a great way to modernize the game while respecting its legacy. This is my main concern with Konami's approach. They are preserving history, or are they risking damaging it? As a longtime fan of the series, I want to see Metal Gear Solid treated with respect it deserves. This means ensuring that any re-release are polished and that new entries in a series have meaningful narratives rather than being blatant cash grabs. Kojima was known for his meticulous attention to the detail, and if Konami wants to continue the series without him, they need to maintain the same level of quality. Otherwise, there'll be no point in bringing Metal Gear back. Now, do let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. Do you think Metal Gear Solid should continue without Kojima? If there's another game series you feel that have been forgotten and deserves a revival, let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, like and subscribe. I'll see you guys all later, and yeah, have a good one.